it or anything like that, or you might be in the beginning stages, or it might not even be you, it could be somebody you're caring for. So I thought that this would be a great subject to have someone in who's more, proficient in this area to talk about this. So without further ado, I'm going to give you David, and David will take care of you today. And again, as I stated, let him get his information out. You can go ahead and question him, and if you get a chance to talk, make sure that you give other people a chance to talk as well, okay? Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you, Gwen.
You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are we doing?
Good.
Everybody eating? Everybody eating? Eating? Not everybody. Okay. But everybody got food. Everybody who wanted food got food, right? Okay, good. All right, cool. I'm going to introduce myself. She couldn't pronounce my last name, so I'm going to go ahead and pronounce my last name. My name is David Ajibade. Yes, very good. So you can see why she couldn't pronounce it, right? Where do you think I'm from?
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Give her a round of applause, please. First time. One time, that's impressive. Most times, it's like, you're from Africa. I'm like, yeah, Africa has 55 countries. Which of them is it? How did you guess, by the way?
I was just a lucky guess.
No. Really?
And the accent as well. Yeah.
So why didn't you say something?
Well, because she said it first.
That's right.
I was thinking if she got it out first.
She gets the prize, right?
Okay, so you do know that Nigeria has the most number of people that look like me, right, on the planet, by far. US is like third, Brazil is number 2. And I run a foundation called the Brain and Body Foundation. We're based both in the US and in Nigeria. We deal with brain disorders. We first started with kids with cerebral palsy and autism, and then we gradually got into adults with strokes, dementia, memory loss, and so on. Now, I'm saying all this because it's become very, very, very important to us and to me as a person. Because as we all know, I hope everybody knows this, that black people, African Americans, coloreds, I'm going to stick with black, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, black people have the highest rate of dementia worldwide, right? In the US, we're twice as likely. In the UK, we're 4 times as likely. And to me, that's a big problem. That's a very, very big problem. I don't know why it's not being shouted on at, why it isn't being addressed more than it is, but that is where we are. We have a problem with dementia. And from what I've seen, I just don't see as much of it being addressed like it should. Why is that so? Why is it so that we have such a higher risk of dementia? Man.
Maybe it's not addressed because of the stigma attached to it. It's like
Well, white people have it too.
But the other thing is information. People don't know a lot about it. They're not knowledgeable enough. They're not educated about it.
Well, the doctors are.
Right. But in terms of the layman like us.
I agree. I feel that people like the healthcare professionals should be pointing these things out, and so that's why I actually reached out to the Alzheimer's Association to volunteer and say, hey, listen, I would like to help. I mean, I do a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do treat and teach on dementia, regardless of the race. But I'm especially, for obvious reasons, especially interested. Hey, Brooke, welcome. But I'm especially interested in the black community. And it's not just the blacks. We also know that women, in particular, have twice the rate of dementia. We also know that military veterans have twice the rate of dementia. Why is that so? I'm not hearing much about that. And I see most of the people here in this room are women, except for that lucky guy over there. What did you have to do to get in here? Hey, goodness. The what? What did you have to do? Who did you have to pay? Did you pay someone to get in here? Just sound your name. Okay. I hope that works in other places. All right. So I'm particularly interested. We have to understand why, and there are obvious reasons. Obviously, the history, racial history, the social injustice, racial disparities in the healthcare system. It is not enough, though, to just leave it at that. Because we now know that other issues like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, hypertension, triglycerides, high cholesterol, all these other things contribute. But there are also other things as well. Our lifestyles, our diets, the way our customs. And I've seen that it's not just unique to the United States. Even in Nigeria, there are so many similarities between the two. So it has become a passion of mine, really, to point out these things, because there are certain things that we are doing that we are unaware that we're doing that is harming our brains and putting us more on the track towards dementia. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, this is across the board. It just seems like in our community is a lot more. And I have parents who are in their 80s, and I'm already beginning to see problems there. So this is more, this is a passion, not just for me, not just because from a professional perspective, but also from a personal perspective as well. So feel free, what we're going to do, we do have a script that we have to run through, given to us by the Alzheimer's Association. So I'm going to go through it. We're going to show a few videos. Today we're going to be talking about the warning signs, the 10 warning signs of dementia. What you need to look out for, either in yourself or in your spouse, that you can identify so you can do something about it quickly. As we all know, the earlier you catch something, the better. The earlier you catch something, the more we're able to do something about it. The drugs that are coming out now are not drugs for full-blown dementia. I hope you know that. Therefore, when you catch them at a very, very mild stage. And so it's looking up, we're hopeful, but they're not there yet. So we need to understand dementia. By the way, does anybody know what dementia is? Just tell me quickly, one hand raised up, shut. Who? Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Just the diminished ability, mentally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Diminished ability mentally, that's a good one. That's good. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Loss of cognitive processes. What's the major hallmark of dementia? Memory loss. Exactly. So one of the things that we begin to see, and that's what you see all the time, but in some cases, some people don't have any memory loss at all. They just have problems processing or understanding what you're saying or recognizing things. And so you don't want to just fixate on that one thing, memory loss. Anyway, without much further ado, let's get into it.
Excuse me,
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't get the 10 steps to approach memory.
The 10 warning signs.
Right, I didn't get that.
She doesn't have to say
And
that.
I apologize, I was late.
We have
We have to share.
I have it.
I'll get some copies.
Okay. We all see this. Okay. All we need to do now is to advance the slide. All right, come back up, please. Okay, folks, let's do that and figure this out. Well, that's embarrassing. Okay. When she comes back, I'll ask him if we can get that technical person back. But in the meantime, yes, ma'am.
We need a sign, and she didn't have enough room.
Okay, we have some more. Are there any more sign-in sheets over there? Okay, thank you. That's full. Any sign-in sheets up? Out some space. Who has not? Anybody else still hasn't signed? You haven't signed yet? Okay, so I'll just take that. Let me try and get it right. All right, so while we're waiting, my apologies for these folks. While we're waiting, we're just going to talk a little bit about dementia. I realized I didn't give you a definition. So dementia is are you all with me? Dementia is a degenerative condition. It's a condition in which the brain, some people use the word dying, and I think that's a little harsh, but it's a condition in which the brain is shutting down. It's actually shutting itself down as a result of years and years and years of one, damage, and two, the response to that damage. So it's a complex changes following continual damage to the brain over a period of time, which eventually leads to the brain shutting itself down. Now, you won't hear that definition much on TV or on the news or anywhere else. What you will probably hear, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but what you will probably hear is that Alzheimer's disease, Alzheimer's disease in particular, is as a result of the appearance of certain proteins called amyloid plaques. Anybody heard of that before? The appearance of amyloid plaques in the brain that suddenly, after a period of time, spread and spread and spread until they shut down the brain's memory processes. And that's why all the drugs, the billions and billions and billions of dollars that are being spent towards this are focused on that one thing, the amyloid plaques and the tau, what are known as tau tangles. These are both proteins that appear in the brain. I need to be able to move the slides forward and backwards. I'm not able to do that yet. That appear in the brain and eventually shut the brain down. Now, the drugs that have come out to address that have, as I've said, shown promise, but that's just only a piece of the puzzle. And why it's important to people like me from third world countries where we don't have access to knowing whether the plaques are there or not. Why that is important to me is that we've got to figure out something else. We've got to find out what else is causing this. It cannot be only the plaques. There are other things too that address these things. And so what I've started teaching with the Alzheimer's Association, I have a talk called Dementia's Dirty Dozen. Everybody say that with me. Dementia's Dirty Dozen. So it talks about the different pathways. What are the different things that cause damage to the brain? Remember the definition of dementia is as a result of damage to the brain. So it's 12, I guess you know it's 12, right? 12 major categories that cause damage to the brain. Because if you can identify what the cause of those damages are, you can identify where that attacks or where those attacks are coming from, you will be more apt to do something about it, yes? But if you don't know where the attack is coming from, how are you going to defend against it? And so I'm going to mention some of them now, and then over time, maybe next time I'm here, we can talk about them. But some of them, especially where blacks are concerned, and by the way, they all start with the letter I. So I for infection, I for illness, I for insulin resistance. But the one I want to talk about now is illnesses. The first one, because that especially concerns us. The illnesses that are most related to dementia are cardiovascular disease, diabetes, those main two more than anything, and we have a high rate of that. As you well know, we have a high rate of that. Now, why do things like, and this is why I'm saying this, because if you're on medication, if you're hypertensive, if you're hypertensive, if you are, oh good. Are those the 10 steps you got?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
All right, I'll make some more.
All right. So,
You don't have that. Who else?
so hypertension. If you are supposed to be on antihypertensive medication, please stay on your antihypertensive medication. If it's not working for you, if you have reactions to it, go to your doctor, find one that works. And you gotta stay on it, because we now know that prolonged hypertension eventually causes there to be breakdown in the blood vessels in the brain and the leakage of certain proteins that trigger, everybody say trigger. Dementia. Okay? Same thing with diabetes. High blood sugar specifically damages the parts of the brain that have to do with memory and learning. So if your blood sugar is not controlled over a period of time, and it's a period of time. This doesn't just happen just like that. It happens step by step, how they say, line upon line, precept upon precept, damage upon damage. Over a period of time, it begins to wear down your neurons and the brain's defensive mechanisms, eventually causing damage. Okay? There are also other things like insulin resistance, things like infections. If you have gum disease, if you're not treating well, if you have a tooth decay, you're not treating well, we're now finding out that that's like a highway. There's a highway from an infected tooth directly to the brain, causing brain damage. Okay? Okay? Indigestion, that's another I. Indigestion, intestinal issues. That's another thing. People who have, what do you call it now? GERD, acid reflux. And usually as we grow older, we tend to have that. More and more, especially if we get bigger, larger in size. But there's a problem too with the drugs. Sometimes, if you're on certain acid blockers for a long period of time, we're now finding out if you don't protect against that, we're now finding out that it itself can lead to brain damage. Okay, so you got to be aware of these things, and so what we're trying to do too is that we're trying to create like a channel, a YouTube channel, where we're constantly educating on these things. Now here's for the big reveal, the big one. Is he done? Check. No, doesn't look like it is. Okay, it looks like we're going to be talking about this, and I want us to have time to answer your questions as well. So please, if you have any questions, be sure you bring them up. But I'll read out the warning signs to you in a minute. The big one, when I talk to my African American audiences all over the place, it's a big one. Everybody say big one. Big one. There's just one thing you learn from this place. There's just one thing. Just one thing. It's vitamin D. Has anybody heard about the importance of vitamin D and the brain? What have you heard?
You said on the brain, I've just heard the importance of vitamin D and that you get vitamin D from the sun and that the supplements don't work as well as getting it from the sun?
Well, nothing works as well as nature, obviously.
Okay.
But they still work.
And it builds up your immune system.
Very good. And by the way, there's one of the dirty dozen is immune dysfunction, because we now know that a faulty immune system can lead to problems with the brain as well. But back to vitamin D. Vitamin D is extremely, extremely important. We all thought about vitamin D as, it helps with the bones, keeps you from having rickets and all that. But it's so much more than that. We know it helps with the immune system. because of COVID, obviously, we knew about how it works with the immune system.
Right.
But also it helps with the cardiovascular system. It also helps with your blood sugar control. It helps with the brain. In fact, vitamin D, I feel it's a big mistake we called it a vitamin because we kind of like, when you think about vitamins, we tend to subject it to the lower cater of things. Vitamin D is so much more, it's almost like a hormone. It regulates a lot of things, including sleep patterns in the brain. What we know, and they've started doing studies now, is that people who are deficient in vitamin D, let me put it this way, you can reduce your risk of dementia. Studies have shown, scientific studies have shown you can reduce your risk of dementia by up to 40% if your vitamin D levels are optimal. Okay? And this goes across the board too for the whites, blacks, or whatever race. Vitamin D is so important. And I feel it's a mistake that we're not emphasizing it because we as black people, who's most deficient in vitamin D? Ah! She said, because we don't stay in the sun. Why don't we stay in the sun? Well, why don't we go to the sun though? It's a question I ask every audience of mine.
We don't
Why?
stay in the sun because we're burning. I burn.
You burn too?
Yeah, 'cause we don't know.
Well, is that when you stay in the sun for a long period of time or for a short period of time?
Short period of time. When I drive, if I have on shorts,
Yeah.
I have a towel that goes across my leg because it burns. If I hold my arm up here, it burns.
Wow.
I don't spend a whole lot of time in the
Inside.
sun. I supplement my vitamin D.
Very good. How much vitamin D do you take?
I take 3 something or another.
Okay.
I don't know. But it's a prescription.
Prescription. Okay. You don't need to have a prescription to take vitamin D, by the way.
Right, so I also do a multivitamin.
Well, multivitamins have very little vitamin D. But we'll get to that in a minute. Yes, ma'am. What do you want to say? Yep.
Because she was positive,
For melanoma? Oh, wow. Okay.
so I have to be careful.
You have to be careful. And I get it. Ma'am, you want to say something?
I was just saying this, it's the same as the other lady said about burning.
So for a short period of time.
No, instantly.
Instantly?
I can feel it burning me, yes.
Okay. Okay.
I put some sunblock on and I usually take a jacket too,
Okay.
when you drive and, cover up.
To cover up.
whatever's-
And that's important. You want to avoid sunburn for sure. So don't get me wrong. You got to protect your skin. But my experience is that whites have a much higher risk of having problems from sunburn. I mean, what I'm hearing, this is unusual. But most times I don't hear that. Most times it's just that, well, whatever reason. Well, we were kept in the sun when our grand ancestors were slaves, so we're tired of being in the sun. Or as a lady I was dating, she's like, oh, she's out in the, when she has a bra line, so she doesn't want to have a bra line because sometimes she wants to have a sleeveless top and all that. And then there are others who don't want to get. There was another one I heard about. It was called colorism, and I just heard about that for the first time. And forgive me, I wasn't born and raised here, so I was hearing that for the first time. And that was one of the reasons why people don't like going out in the sun, because they don't want to get any darker, right? And those are all factors. So whatever the reason is, yes, ma'am.
That's not saying, I'm the opposite, I'm a sun worshiper.
Yes.
So I'm in the sun, haven't seen my real color in years.
Oh, really?
Because in my house, the sun comes in, I have a balcony, so, and I have to read a lot.
Yeah.
I stay in, I have a sun, I used to go up to the rooftop when I
Yeah.
was in an apartment. I just love the sun.
Wow. That's good. So you don't get sunburn.
Well, I would peel something, yeah, I guess if you peel, that means it may be too much.
It may be too much if you have to
Yeah,
peel.
usually, my toes are peeled, the rest of it's okay.
Okay. So you're good. So you're good. Yes, ma'am.
And I get an allergic reaction to
To the sun. Allergic reaction to the sun. Like taking vitamin D.
Yes.
Okay. So we're gonna. I'm sorry.
I have to check the level.
Okay. It's most likely you're gonna be deficient. If you're not staying out in the sun like 2 hours or 3 hours a day, you're most likely going to be deficient in vitamin D. You're most likely going to be deficient in vitamin D. Which means what?
We need to take supplements.
Which means, yes, which means your brain is at risk.
Right.
your brain is at risk. I can't tell you, I can't emphasize that more enough. I'm gonna move on to something else, but you need to understand these things.
Before you leave the vitamin D, you said, it decreases your opportunity for Alzheimer's or dementia for 40% if your level is optimum.
Yes.
What is the optimum level of vitamin D?
Perfect question. So the range is 30 to 100. That's the range. Most doctors will say if you're above 30, you're okay. Doctors who deal with Alzheimer's disease, who really treat and work with Alzheimer's disease, they don't accept anything less than 100. Okay?